Hi, thank you for joining and thank you for catching the replay. I am Sarah.
I'm Jenna.
And we are Heartly Broken. We help moms focus on themselves during divorce. And we feel that it's very important to do this because it helps work through, whatever baggage you had from your previous relationship, and refocusing on yourself and connecting with yourself. Just helps in general with the healing process. So we talk about things like health and wellness, DIYs, financial management, stress reduction, and fun stuff too that moms will like to hear about. So tonight is actually our fourth and final installment in surviving the holidays during divorce. And we wanted to start this series because we feel like the holidays are such an emotionally and stressful, draining time anyway. And going through divorce or separation just makes this time that's supposed to be happy and festive and joyful and family-oriented even more stressful and more upsetting. So we thought that we would devote the month of December, and I hope we do this again next year, to trying to help you through the holidays while you're going through divorce, to reduce stress, to reconnect with your family, to start to establish new traditions with this new family dynamic that you're in, and just really set the tone for the new year. So this week is how to kickstart your healing process while going through divorce. So, because the new year's coming up, I thought it was a great time to talk about this, because a lot of us are starting a new chapter in our life. We're starting a new life, period. And we're saying goodbye to the life that we used to know and kind of stepping into this really, at times exciting, scary, just unknown territory of divorce. So I thought we could start this by just kind of talking about what the healing process is, because I don't know about you, Jenna, but when I first found out my husband was cheating on me and, decided that we were going to get a divorce and go down that road, I started reading about the healing process. And at least I think that a lot of the information out there is misleading because it makes it seem like the healing process is the step-by-step process, and you start with one phase and you go through it and then it's over, and then you go to the next phase and you go through it and that part's over. And it was very confusing to me because I would feel like I would be in denial. And first, let me say that denial can manifest itself in different ways. You can be in denial that the relationship is over. Like, that's one form of denial. You don't want to accept that the relationship is over. The second form of denial is denying that you're actually grieving. And that's what was happening to me. That was the denial that I went through.
The denial that I've gone through, like, repeatedly, and I've heard that this is actually common for people who've been abused and been in abusive relationships, is the denial that it was actually that bad. And you just, it's like you forget, like, the further you get away from it, you're like, was it really that bad? I can't really, I even recently have thought that to myself, and then it's just, I have to make the conscious effort to be like, okay, yes, it was, and tell myself, all the reasons why it was, and just go, hello, get back to reality. But yeah, denial does come and go, I think, and it can. And like you said, this isn't just, the stages of grief. They're not just pretty stages and like little neat packages and then you're done. I mean, you're going to experience a wide array of them at any time, and they might pop up and you have no idea that it was going to happen. Like, being angry, and especially around this time of year, seeing, other family members who haven't gone through divorce or haven't gone through what you've gone through, that can stir up a lot of issues and feelings and resentment, anger. Like you can have all of those things all over again. So, and I've been, I've been gone from my situation for almost 2 years, but that stuff can still creep up. So it's, like you said, it's not just a stage and then it's over. So that needs to be talked about more, I think.
It does. Yeah. Whenever I think of the healing process, I think of an episode of Monk when he thought that he was going to be reinstated as a detective, but then he got the news that they actually weren't going to reinstate him. And he walked out of the sergeant, or whatever the title guy is, the head detective guy. He walked out of his office, and as he was walking down the hallway, he was going through all of the stages of grief. And it was really funny, and the other characters were like, what is happening? And one of the characters, well, he's going through the stages of grief, and the other one's like, well, that's pretty fast. And he's like, yeah. And like, I think that kind of poses another misinterpretation of what the healing process is, that it's something that you can, force yourself through. And I think, I don't really like the word force, because you can't force yourself to be okay. You can't force yourself in and out of the different stages of grief and of healing, but you can encourage yourself. There's a big difference between forcing yourself and encouraging yourself through them, through these steps. So I do want to make that distinction, because I've been, and actually this is going to be, I think we're going to do a whole show about this part, because I've heard this crop up many, many times in groups and in many discussions about the healing process, where, somebody will say something that they don't like, well, I'll just give the example, because that probably is easier. I'm in this group on Facebook, and a lady posted that she was upset because her child was on the phone with her ex, and then he brought his girlfriend on the phone to talk with them, and she let them talk for a little bit, and then she didn't want them to talk anymore, so she made her son get off the phone, and she was talking to her ex later, and they kind of got into an argument, and so she was just asking, is it okay for me to not allow my son to talk to my ex's girlfriend? And I think I was the only one who said, if you're not comfortable with it, you don't have to. You are under no obligation to allow your child to talk with your ex's girlfriend. And the comments that most of the comments that were made were, you need to pick your battles, and you just need to deal with this. And if I was you, I would just let this go. Like, I'm like, really? Seriously? Like, it makes me wonder if it really makes me wonder if people who say that aren't in denial themselves. Because I know, even thinking about the fact that my daughter is spending time with my husband, or my soon-to-be ex's girlfriend, hurts me. Like, that whole, I've forgiven him for cheating on me. Like, I'm completely fine with that. But I'm having a really hard time forgiving him for introducing our daughter to his girlfriend so soon, and also for lying to me about it. I mean, that really hurts. And to tell someone that they just need to deal with it, like, I don't know, it just seems ridiculous to me. But this advice is just rampant. And
well, it seems like have any of them gone through that?
Well, I know, but it's a divorce group, so you would assume that they're there because they've gone through divorce and they have kids. Well, I don't know. Maybe these women who were commenting didn't even have kids, but I know.
That's what I'm saying is, I don't think that people who've gone through that would just say, let it go and it's no big deal, unless they have a completely, different situation. But I wouldn't feel comfortable with that either. Yeah. And like you said, it hurts me that my kids spend time with my ex's, girlfriend, and they talk about her a lot, and you know, it's hurtful, and it sucks knowing I have to share them with her. And so, yeah, I wouldn't have given that advice.
And I just want to point out that you have a boyfriend. So so the hurt that you're feeling has nothing to do with the fact, like, it doesn't go away just because you have found someone that you love now. Like, that's not what it's about. It's about the relationship between you and your kids. And I mean, I don't know what point I was trying to make. I think there was a point in there, but I lost it. But yeah, so this is what I'm talking about. Like, the healing process, you cannot be forced through it. And I think if somebody tells you to just deal with it, and that's all the advice they give you, like, I mean, I told her what I said was, you know, there might be a time in the future that you're okay with your child talking to your ex's girlfriend. But if you're not okay with it right now, and if you're hurting about it, and if it's hurting you, then you need to work through those emotions. So saying you need to work through those emotions is a lot different than saying, well, just deal with it. I mean, and I don't know if that's what these women actually meant, if what they actually meant was you need to work through your emotions, and they just chose, you know, this kind of wrong phrase. But so yeah, I guess, you know, my first tip for kickstarting your healing process, I know it's ridiculous, right?
It just reminds me of this group that I'm in, where people were talking about being a stay-at-home parent, and, you know, the difficulties and the good things about it and all this. And some girl just gets on there and she's just like, it's easy to be a stay-at-home mom, and, you know, all you have to do is just pop a pizza in the oven and you're done. And I'm just like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Wow. It just made me laugh. And I was just, you know, it's just funny. It's just funny because it's like, you know, when people make comments like that, they don't know what they're talking about. They haven't gone through it, because they wouldn't say that if they had. Right. Just reminds me of that. So I'd just say ignore people like that, you know. And I was looking back through my notes about like, well, Sarah and I are writing a book, and I was looking at my notes about topics in our book, and one thing I wrote down is, like, if you're a part of groups, you know, like online or wherever, that trigger you, or, you know, are consistently negative, and they're not helpful to you, and they're hurting you in any way, even if it's a family member, cut that person out of your life, cut that group out of your life. You know, like, if there's, you know, even if it's a friend, you know, on Facebook that you don't want to delete, you know, unfollow them so you don't see their posts, you know. Just, I'd say that's a really good thing to do, is just cut out all the negativity and all the things that you don't need on a daily basis. So that would be one thing.
That is a really good point.
Yeah.
We've kind of cut ahead to how to kickstart your healing process. I do want to go back to what the healing process is. So the healing process, you know, obviously it's several phases that you go through on the road, on the journey. I like the word journey better. Through when you're suffering a loss or a traumatic change in your life. And I do use the word journey very specifically because it's, a lot of people view the healing process as only focused on the end, focused on, when am I going to feel better? When am I going to be happy? When am I going to be content enough, or healed enough to start a new relationship? It's always about the end. And just like anything else that you do in life, the healing process is a journey. It's a long and winding journey. And going through that journey with conscious effort is what's going to help you to heal. And, you know, like we mentioned before, it's winding. It's a long, you know, winding road. You're going to circle back around a couple times. One thing in the divorce care class that I went to, one of the women that was there was talking about how she found that she was able to get past a part of her grief and her sadness and her hurt. And she thought that, I think she was talking specifically about forgiving her husband, because I think he cheated on her as well. And at one point she thought, okay, I forgive him, so I must be at acceptance, right? Well, a couple days later, something else happened and she was crying all over again. And she was confused why she was crying if she had already accepted the situation and forgiven him. And she said what she realized was that your relationship with that person, and also the situation and the circumstances that led to the breakup and to the divorce, are comprised of little pieces. And if you find one day that you're okay with something, or you're feeling good, or you're accepting of something, or you're forgiving of something, you probably are only forgiving a part of it. And it's like a puzzle. And you forgive this part and you can move on for a little bit, and then something probably triggers you. And you can forgive this part and move past this part. And then, later you find yourself seemingly right back to where you started. But just know that you are moving forward. I mean, you have to be moving forward. I don't think there's a person alive today that has gone through a traumatic experience that's just still at step 0. I mean, you have to be making some sort of progress. So,
well, I can think of some ways that people do not heal from. And I actually personally know some people who haven't healed from traumatic experiences. And one woman I'm thinking of in particular is an alcoholic, and her life is just in shambles, and she still refuses to deal with everything, and she's in denial still. So, and it's been years. So, yeah, I think some people can be at 0 and not, that's. Yeah, but I think she needs serious help. So I'm I know what you mean. A normal person, and pretty normal person who is trying to move forward and do the best in their life is going to take steps, even if they're baby steps. And but this isn't something that just happens. Healing doesn't just happen. Like you said, you have to make the choice to deal with these things as they come up, to deal with, like if you just choose to just stay in denial, you can do that. But you also can choose to tell yourself the truth that, things are over and I have to accept that. And so it takes some maturing, to go through these steps. And, but that's the thing too, is, I think taking it one day at a time is a really good motto when you're a single mom, that I learned on really early on. It's like, I'm not going to worry about a bunch of stuff in the future right now. I just need to take it a day at a time whenever things were just really bad and at the beginning. So,
I think that phrase gets overused a lot and it's lost its meaning. But I do agree with you that I personally like to think of this as, I can only deal with what's going on right now. And if you're constantly looking into the future or thinking about the past, then you're forgetting the present. And there are still a lot of good things going on in your life right now, even though you're going through this horrible situation. And a lot of those good things are disguised as bad things, like having to go through this healing process, having to go through this, sadness and guilt and anger and frustration and, even denial. But that this is a good thing, because when you work through this healing process, you are learning so much about yourself. You are learning so much about how you interact with people, how you relate to people, how you relate to yourself. You're learning so much about how to do things differently, or things, not really things you could have done differently, but because that kind of makes it seem like it's your fault. It's more like realizations about relationships and how relationships actually should be, and how healthy relationships actually look. And especially the relationship you have with yourself, because if you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself, you can't have a healthy relationship with somebody else. And if both people in the relationship don't have a healthy relationship with themselves, then that relationship is doomed. But we talk about this all the time, how society has made relationships and whatever. So let's keep going. Okay, so what the healing process is not. We've already mentioned that it's not a straightforward 1, 2, 3 step program. You can't enter the healing. You can learn about the steps of the healing process so that you can acknowledge them and realize when they're happening. But there is not a blueprint for the healing process. So just, if you get that in your mind very early on, I think it is going to save you a lot of heartache. And we've already mentioned that the healing process isn't something that someone can force you through. And it's not something you can force yourself through. Instead of forcing yourself through it, think of it as encouraging yourself through it. So you're not forcing yourself into the next step. You're not forcing yourself into a preconceived notion of what the healing process is. You're encouraging yourself to acknowledge that it's happening and just deal with it as it comes. And the healing process is also something that cannot be ignored. Because whether you like it or not, whether you're conscious of it or not, you are going through the healing process. I think that's kind of what I meant before when I said that. Because your body and your mind are going to go through this healing process, whether you like it or not. But if you're denying it, then the journey is going to be long and hard and sad. And if you're acknowledging it and working with it and working through it, then that's what's going to lead you to actual healing and being happy on the other side. Okay, so did you have anything to add to what I just said? I kind of just tried to summarize real quick.
No, it's perfect. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so how do we kickstart the healing process? We've already talked about some of the ways that you can do it. My all-time favorite way, not favorite, but I think the way that I find most important, the thing that I find most important to going through the healing process is being honest with yourself. And what I mean by this is, when you're sad and you're hurt and you're going through the healing process, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to indulge in certain things you probably shouldn't. You're going to maybe overeat or not eat enough. You're going to ignore your health. All of those things are perfectly normal when you're going through a healing process like this. But what you need to be honest with yourself about is, you need to be honest that you are you're making bad decisions. Like, mistakes are okay. Nobody's perfect, especially when you're under traumatic stress, like divorce or separation or being cheated on or getting out of an abusive relationship. But when you've gotten to the point where you continue to make these mistakes and continue to do things that are not in your best interest or your child's best interest, you really need to be honest with yourself. You need to be honest with yourself about how far along you are in the healing process. You need to be honest with yourself about, like, say if you're trying to get into another relationship or a rebound relationship, you need to be honest with yourself about your feelings. And if you're not feeling good about being in that relationship, you need to get out. Even though you're lonely, you need to be honest with yourself about being lonely. I found that if I'm feeling a certain way, if I call it the funk, and I get in the funk a lot. I don't know why, but I do. But as soon as I acknowledge the feeling that I'm feeling, whether it's scared, lonely, depressed, frustrated, resentful, whatever it is, as soon as I acknowledge the feeling, I feel so much better. And I didn't discover this. I've heard this like many times from people. So, just acknowledging your feelings And that'll help in the future too. Because I think a lot of people, when they get into a relationship, they are scared of their feelings, whatever those feelings might be. They're scared of feeling sad. They're scared of feeling depressed. They're scared of feeling angry. And so they don't acknowledge those feelings, and they kind of ignore those feelings. And I think a lot of people also don't know exactly what feeling they're feeling, because they've never acknowledged it, or they've always suppressed it. But going through a divorce is an excellent time to get in touch with your feelings, because you have a lot of them.
Well, an exercise that we did in my class, I know I've mentioned this before on another show, but the very first step for the counseling class I took for 6 months was writing down your feelings. And it had to be specific, not just like happy, sad. It was, very specific feelings. We had to do that 3 times a day, in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening for 6 weeks. We had to write down, and it was like an assignment. We had to turn it in. And so, they were telling us to look for signs and, notice if your heart is beating faster, or your face is flushed, or, you're shaking, or your jaw's clenched. Notice how you feel, and be, and it taught me to be much more aware of how I'm feeling, rather than just ignoring it like I had done before. And I think that was really smart that they did that at the very beginning of the class. Really. I think that's a really good first step in the right direction, because if you know how you feel and you're in touch with it and you're not afraid of it, then you're going to make better decisions overall in every aspect of your life. And it helps you learn about yourself more, and learn what parts of your life are not good and things that need to change. So I agree with you completely, Sarah. And I would say, something to add on to that is acknowledging them is great. And then also allowing, a lot of us are taught, we've talked about this before. It's been quite a while since we've talked about it, but a lot of us are brought up not to be angry, not to express anger in any way. Like if we start to get angry, our parents would be like, stop, or don't be angry, or, whatever. And we weren't allowed to express anger, which isn't a bad thing. Anger is not a bad thing. Doing something like breaking everything in the house is a bad thing, or, there are bad expressions of anger, but there's also healthy expressions of anger. And that was one that we had really talked about before, is allowing yourself to feel that, and then in a healthy way expressing it. Whether if you're furious and you need to go be by yourself for a while, go take a walk, or write a letter and then rip it up and throw it away. Those are healthy ways to express anger. And I've done both of them, and they help a lot. And, just allowing yourself, if you feel a feeling about something, if you feel extremely angry, or if you feel really sad, allow yourself to cry. Cause I know a lot of people have a blockage with that as well. A lot of people don't know how to cry, or they were taught that that's bad. Even I was, and I'm a girl, growing up, I was. So go ahead.
As babies, adults are always trying to get babies to stop crying. And I understand a crying baby is annoying if you're not the parent. Even if you are the parent, it's annoying, but it's even more so if you're not the parent and you have to deal with a crying baby. I get it. I totally get it. But, I can't stand it when people say, if my daughter's crying for whatever reason, whether she, fell and hurt herself, or, whatever, and they say, oh, it's okay, you'll be okay, just walk it off. No, let her experience emotions. I mean, that's what differentiates humans from the rest of the species on Earth. Well, no, I mean, all species have emotions, obviously, but I mean, we're the only ones, I think, that can actually talk about them and analyze them like we're doing. And we seem to be the only species who is really taught to suppress most of our emotions.
Yeah.
And it's really annoying. But I'm glad that you brought up the fact that feelings can have a physical manifestation, like a beating, your heart beats faster, you get short of breath, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys looking at? My parents are just standing there watching me. So, I mean, again, this is nothing new, but I'm glad that you brought it up because it reminded me of something that happened over Thanksgiving. One of my family members reprimanded my daughter in what I feel was not a very nice way. And I thought that I was upset about it at first, but I thought that, I was okay with it and I wasn't mad about it or whatever. Well, the next day, a friend of mine texted me and asked me how my Thanksgiving was. And I started out, like, the morning didn't really start out very well. And so I started out talking about that. And then I got to the part where this situation happened with a family member and my daughter. And as I was typing that part of it out, my heart started beating really fast. I got short of breath. My chest clamped up. I was just so stressed out. And I'm like, oh crap, I guess I'm really not okay with this. Like, it completely creeped up on me. Like, I really didn't think it had bothered me as much as it did, but it obviously did. And so that prompted me to write to my family member and tell her how I felt. And as soon as I wrote it, I felt better. I mean, nothing's come from it, but at least I got that anger out and those feelings out. So,
that's good.
Another thing that we've talked about on the show is setting boundaries for yourself. So while you're going through divorce, obviously things are very stressful. Things are stressful in your life no matter what, but when you're going through divorce on top of the regular everyday stress, it creates a whirlwind of stress and emotions and, anxiety. So what's really important to do during a divorce is to set boundaries. I like to call them my rights, because I think a lot of times when somebody is going through something like divorce, many people on the outside don't really know how to react or really what to say. So people come up with all these rules and all these sayings that don't really help. And a lot of those things are detrimental to the person who's going through this grief and through this process. And so we were just talking about emotions. A lot of people don't like to see big emotions in people, like crying or anger or whatever. And so people on the outside will maybe try to tell the person who's going through this situation things like, well, my dad he doesn't like to see me angry. He doesn't like to see me sad. And so he tries to get me happy, like, really quickly, because he just doesn't want to see me sad. And I understand that. But when family members do that too much, they don't allow you to work through your emotions. So one of your rights could be, I have a right to my feelings, and I have a right to work through my feelings in the way I see fit. Obviously, again, we don't condone violence of any kind, but if you need to be by yourself for a little bit to work through your anger or to calm down, you have every right to go do that. And family members and friends might stand in your way, or they might come in and say, you're being rude to people, or whatever they say. So this is why it's very important to set your boundaries for, what's that word called? Give yourself these rights, because it just gives you the power to work through the healing process and to work through things on your own terms. So sorry, I need to take a break.
That's okay.
So setting boundaries is really important. And plan for a lot of time alone. Jenna, you've talked a lot about dating yourself in the early days of separation. Can you talk about that again?
Yeah. I beforehand, before I was separated, I really hadn't done a whole lot of things by myself. If I ever did, it was just kind of in a more private setting. Like, I'd go to a park by myself, or, just go and sit somewhere. But I decided that I wanted to just do things on my own and not be afraid of it. And so I decided to go out to eat by myself. And a lot of people I've seen groups, like I'm a part of this INFP group, which is the type of personality that I am. And all these people like, you know, saying that they think it's so weird that people can't go eat by themselves. So maybe my personality type's more prone to do it because we're introverts anyway. But you know, it's funny because I've heard some people say, "Oh, I can never do that. I can never go eat by myself," and I'm just like, it's not that hard to do. Plus, you get to pick everything, and it's cheaper, and you know, I mean, it can be really fun. You know, even if at first it's kind of awkward, just go at a time that's not going to be super busy. You know, go on like a date, go at a daytime where, I don't know, you know what I mean? Anyway, you know, when I went shopping by myself, I went to a movie by myself. I think the shopping is more common to do by yourself, but like I had this one day where I just decided, you know what, this whole day I'm just going to date myself and do what I want to do, and I'm going to have fun by myself because I had this kind of new mantra, like I don't need a man to be in my life and be happy and to have worth. And because I don't know, for some reason or other, I always kind of felt that way in my teenage years and after. For some reason, I don't really know why.
Well, narcissism,
but I'd never
not feel that way.
I just didn't ever want to be alone.
Right.
So I decided, you know, forget that. You know, that didn't get me anywhere. That kind of was like detrimental to myself all these years. So, and I just realized I didn't really know who I was. You know, being stripped away of everything I knew for so many years, and, you know, all this identity I had and being a wife and all of this, it was gone, you know. So I just realized, you know, I need to know who I am and what I want. And I want to just learn to be alone and be comfortable with it. So the more I've done it, you know, and the more I did it, I realized I really liked it, you know, and I liked myself because I felt, you know, you kind of lose yourself when you're in a relationship with somebody in different ways. You can lose yourself. So if you have this time, you know, doing the things you like to do and you do it alone and there's nobody else there that you're trying to cater to or agree with or whatever, you get to do everything you want to do. And it can be really fun, and it's very helpful. So, you know, if you need to take baby steps, take baby steps. But it really is a great thing, and I definitely encourage people to do that. Especially men, because men tend to jump into relationships sooner than women do, I feel. And especially since I've seen over and over in my life from my dad to, you know, friends and, you know, all that. So anyway, that's a good step in, you know, the right direction of healing and knowing what you want, and how you want to be treated. And just, you know, like that's something you can reflect on, and, you know, you'll see it couples out and everything. And it might be hurtful that you're not with somebody, but at least you can know that you're not being hurt by someone else. And, you know, for the time being, you have peace if you're by yourself. So,
what I've noticed is when I go out by myself, I go out by myself a lot. I have no problem with it. I'll go to go to Mango, the cafe in town. I'll go to Red Lobster. I love going out, especially when it involves food. I love food. But I've noticed that when I go out by myself, I tend to, you know, people watch a little more, and I notice things. And because obviously when you have somebody sitting across from you, you know, your attention should be on that person. But when you're with yourself, you can look at other people and view their relationship and how they interact from the outside. And that can give you clues about, you know, what you want your next relationship to be like. And I do want to point out that I'm using I'm using the word relationship very specifically. I try not to, I mean, obviously I've done this, but I try not to think about what I want my next boyfriend to be like, or the next, fling or whatever, the next guy to be like. I try not to be like specific about what he looks like or how he acts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to focus more on what I want the relationship to be. And at the top of my list, I want the relationship to be gentle. I want to be gentle with him, and I want him to be gentle with me. And what I mean by that is, I don't get mad very easily, but for some reason in my relationship with my soon-to-be ex, I found myself getting very frustrated, very annoyed with him. And we've talked about that's a really good sign that things are not right, and you need to evaluate the relationship that you're in if your demeanor has changed. And there was just so much stress in our relationship. It was just, grating on my nerves. And so every little thing that happened, I kind of went off the handle when I shouldn't have, even when he didn't do anything that deserved it. Well, nobody deserves to be yelled at or, whatever. But, looking back, I mean, he didn't even do anything, wrong. It was just, I was so stressed and so upset and so sad. And I was really kind of in denial about that too, because in the back of my head, I was like, well, we said our vows and we spent all that money on the wedding and we've been married and we have a child. So, I just need to deal with this, and I need to stick with it. And yeah, you do need to work through your relationship, but you can't force the other person to work through whatever they need to work through. So anyway, getting back to my point, which I've kind of forgotten it now, but I think my point was that when you're in a relationship, like Jenna said, you lose yourself. And this is why I say so many times, every opportunity I get, I say that you going through a relationship, you are in an extremely lucky situation. And I say lucky because most people don't get an opportunity to start over. They don't get an opportunity that forces them to reconnect with themselves. And they don't get an opportunity to reevaluate and be able to kind of recreate or rewrite their relationship story. Very rarely do people get this opportunity. Well, I say very rarely, but I mean, divorce is very common. So the opportunity is there. It's just, I don't think very many people take it. They jump from one relationship to the other. They don't go through the healing process. They don't acknowledge what they're feeling. And so they find themselves in just as bad of a relationship as the one that they left. And I think the main reason for that is they haven't built themselves back up. So when you're in a vulnerable situation, or when you're in a very sad and desperate situation, you're going to attract sad and desperate people. But when you are healthy with yourself, when you're accepting with yourself, when you're happy with who you are, and you know who you are, and you know what your boundaries are, you know what you want a relationship to look like, you know what a healthy relationship looks like, you're going to attract the same quality of people. And so that's why. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's one thing that my boyfriend said attracted him to me, is that I was confident and that, like I seemed, emotionally healthy and all of that. And he's very emotionally healthy. So, but I had to get to that point before, I met him, and I'm glad that I did, because otherwise I wouldn't be with him. And, it's a very good relationship and solid. And, so yeah, that's the main thing is, I see a lot of people that I care about, making these really bad relationship decisions, but until they heal from their past and mature emotionally, they're just going to keep attracting the same people over and over. You can't expect to, like you said, attract an emotionally healthy person if you're not, because they're going to know it. And subconsciously they'll know it and they'll stay away from you.
Exactly.
So, if that's what you want, if you have, if you set standards for yourself and higher standards than you've ever had, not unattainable, just, that they're emotionally stable and healthy. And like you said, not being super specific about who they are, or what they do. It's just, if you have standards, then, and you set those for yourself as well, then you're going to meet somebody on the same, same lines as you. And yeah, it's a much better way to live. That's for sure.
Right.
Much better way to live. So,
okay. So let's see, what have we gone over? Be honest with yourself, set boundaries, plan for a lot of alone time, say no to things that waste your time. What was that phrase that that one of our guests gave for people going through divorce? We have like a built-in, what did she say? Oh, we'll have
something
to go.
Like a no bullshit monitor or something.
No bullshit
something
power,
like that.
because it was like a superpower.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the reason why this is so important is because, my husband and I separated about a year ago, a year and a couple months ago, and I moved in with my parents like that night when we separated. And I remember I had to put my business on hold for a little bit. I had to, there was no time for anything. I was having to coordinate visitation with my soon-to-be ex, normal everyday things. I had to take time to figure out my finances. I had to take time for myself to work through these emotions. And especially, those first few weeks, especially, there's a lot of heated emotion. So you're probably going to find yourself getting in arguments with your soon-to-be ex. And so I was spending a lot of time just dealing with the fallout from the separation and the emotions. And even now that it's been a year and a couple months out, and I think I can't remember the last argument my soon-to-be ex and I had, just because we've gotten so far away from the emotional aspect of it. I mean, there's still hurt there, but it's not this raw emotion anymore. So saying no to things that waste your time is really important, because you're already spending so much of your energy trying to get through the emotion, trying to get through just the everyday, trying to deal with everything that comes with separation and divorce. So saying no to things and people that waste your time is a really important step to kickstart your healing process. Mm-hmm. And then I mentioned before, learn about the different stages of grief, so the signs, so that you can better recognize what stage that you're in, and depending on the stage that you're in, will most likely determine how you handle what's going on, how you get through that stage of the grieving process. Sorry, something caught my attention and I lost my train of thought. But just acknowledge that they're happening. Don't try to force yourself through it, and don't think of the stages of the healing process as step 1, step 2, step 3, and when you're done with step 1, you move on to step 2, and you'll never go back to step 1, or you'll never go back to this stage, because you most likely will. Emotions are so complicated. It would be impossible for humans to go through one stage and then never go back to that stage, like never go back to the sadness stage or never go back to the denial stage, because our relationships with people are so complex. And parts of those relationships are going to be easier to work through than others. Like I was explaining to Jenna, the fact that my husband cheated on me was a lot easier for me to work through than my husband lying to me about his girlfriend spending time with my daughter. I'm more hurt by that, and that's taken. I'm still working through that. I don't know what stage I am on that, so I need to do some, soul searching, I guess, on that. But yeah, it's complicated. So just acknowledge the different stages, but don't think of them like, they're in order. So,
Yes.
Jenna, do you have anything to say again? I need to take a break.
Yeah. And the stages of grief, it's often associated with death. And we've talked about this before. I keep saying that, but when you go through a divorce, it's like a death.
Yeah.
So, you can read about death and what, the stages that people go through and all the things, and it relates. It really does, because whenever I looked that up, the 5 stages of grief, I found articles about death, but when I read them, it was very applicable to what I was going through, being separated. So, and that just needs to be said, is like, this is like a death, and it's a very big life change, and it's hard for everyone involved, and just allow yourself to grieve and allow yourself to feel these feelings and deal with them so that you can move on and be healthier. Because, if you've seen people in your life, and I'm sure you have, who haven't dealt with like family members' deaths, and they, if you talk about them at all, they'll just, or you just, you'll hear people say, don't ever talk about so-and-so to so-and-so because it's bad news. That's not healthy. And it's not that, it's not that it's wrong to, miss a family member, somebody you were very close to, but, if years and years have gone by and you still haven't healed from it, there's something wrong. So, just, and I always think, it's good to be gentle with yourself, when you go through all of these things, and the take it a day at a time thing. Like, if you're having a really, really horrible day and there's nothing is cheering you up, or, just absolutely nothing's working, just let it happen. I guarantee that tomorrow will be better if you just allow it. If you don't allow it and you fight it, it probably won't be. So, it's just the allowing yourself to go through the stages.
I think a really good movie to watch is Inside Out.
Oh yeah.
I love that movie, and I watched it. It was one of the first movies, and we just watched it, I think last month or the month before that. It's one of the first movies that my daughter has really actually sat through and watched. I mean, she didn't stay, perfectly still the whole time, but she was actually watching it, and she sat next to me. And when it got to the part at the end where Joy gave the memory ball to Sadness, or Depression, or whatever her name was, man, I cried. I cried really, really hard. And I think that's such a beautiful movie, because it's such a beautiful message to, allow sadness, allow, a journey through sadness to heal, and to figure out, who you are, and to grow from that, instead of just covering it up with joy. And I think our society has a really big problem with that. I mean, this happened to me more than a few times. First of all, I'm not a partier. I don't really like to go out to bars and party and drink. I like to go to bars for 2 reasons. To talk, to have a good conversation, or to sing karaoke. But I don't like to go just to get drunk and party and dance and whatever. So this happened to me more than a few times. I'll be at a bar with a bunch of friends. This mostly happened when I was in Chicago, and my friends just always wanted to go to bars or whatever. So we'd be at a bar and I'd just be listening because there was a live band playing and I like just listening to the band and watching the band. And like I said, I don't drink or dance or anything. And somebody would come up to me and they'd be like, why are you so upset? Or like, I can't remember exactly how they put it, but it was almost like I was offending them because I wasn't acting like a crazy person. And it's kind of sad that, you know, and I have friends who just can't sit in silence. Like I'll drive, like if I have to drive and, or, you know, run errands or whatever, there are times, a lot of times when I need to just turn off the radio and just be in silence. Or if I'm working, sometimes I'll have the music on, but then, you know, sometimes I'll need quiet. I know friends who cannot sit in silence for 1 second. They either need to be talking, they need to have the TV on, they need to have the radio going, they need to have a movie on. And it's so sad because, you know, there are all these opportunities to find peace within yourself and to learn more about yourself. And people are covering that up and, you know, just completely ignoring that by all this noise and all this. It's really exhausting when you think about how often like Americans specifically are kind of trained to be happy and trained to just have noise around them. I mean, it's really exhausting. So, but I'm really glad that movie came out because obviously for me, I was thinking about it in terms of divorce and, you know, but someone who's gone through you know, other traumatic experiences like losing a loved one or whatever, I'm sure that movie spoke to them too. So
that's a good one to watch with your kids.
Oh yeah,
and
bring Kleenex.
Talk about, you know, and to talk about emotions and dealing with emotions, and you know, especially children going through, you know, their parents being separated and divorce is really hard on them. And they go through stages also, which I think we should probably talk about in another show about kids and the things they go through. Because I have 3 kids, and you know, they've gone through stages and waves, and it's almost been 2 years, but they still, you know, have different things that they're going through and having to deal with. And you know, it's good to also acknowledge your children's feelings. And while allowing yourself to feel things, to allow them to feel things. So if they, you know, there might be times where they act out a lot. And I've found that asking them, you know, how are you really feeling? I know you're not this upset about a cap not fitting on a marker. You know what I mean? You know, just kind of, and I know Sarah's also said that as well, that, you know, she's talked with her daughter about how, you know, things she's been frustrated about as well. Because kids, it doesn't seem like, you know, they just off the bat are going to tell you how they feel deep down. So it's good to also just try to talk with them. And I feel like that was the biggest mistake my parents made when they got a divorce, is not really talking to me hardly at all about the reality of the situation, not asking me, you know, how I felt. We just tried to like rigidly move on to our new, you know, roles or whatever. And it was really sad because I just didn't feel like I had anybody to talk to about it, or I couldn't because they just didn't make that space for me to. But with my kids, I've tried to do the opposite. And, you know, I don't try to overwhelm them or bring it up all the time, but, you know, if they're having off days, or I just notice something's different, you know, with them, just asking them about it, and, you know, and just letting them be upset. And even if they say something kind of hurtful to you, you know, just kind of allowing it, because that's part of their process too. And so I'd say, you know, along the lines of acknowledging and allowing, you need to also do that with your children. So that needs to be said.
It boggles, kind of going back to, you know, how our society got on this, in this situation of mature adults not acknowledging their emotions or wanting to deal with their emotions, it doesn't really surprise me because just yesterday, I took my daughter to the mall, to the play area. It was so crowded. There were kids running everywhere. It was crazy. And my daughter was playing on the slide, and I was sitting down next to these other parents, and this teenage girl, well, not, I guess she couldn't have been teenager, maybe 9 or so, girl came back over and sat down next to her mom. And, I don't know why she wanted to sit down next to her mom, but for whatever reason, she just didn't want to play with the other kids. And her mom like forced her there. And I'm like, and, there are times when I was younger, when, I was upset about something and my family members would like ridicule me. Like, oh, you're going to go pout now? Like, well, yeah, I'm like, what, 6 years old? Like, that's what you do when you're 6 years old, and you're trying to deal with your emotions. You get, moody and sad, and you want to be by yourself. I mean, that's what happens. And so I was really excited when I got this new Bare Naked Lady CD. I don't know how long ago they made it. It's an old CD, but it's for kids. It's a bunch of kids songs. And I got really excited when we got to this one song. It was about having a bad day. And it was sung kind of from the point of view of the child, of this little boy. And he was just having a bad day, and he didn't want to play with his toys, and he was just going to give them all away because he didn't want his toys anymore, and he didn't want to ride his bike, and everybody else was having fun outside, and he was just going to sit inside and all this other stuff. At the very end, his dad came in and said, there are going to be days like this, but I can't remember the exact words. Oh, I wish I could remember them real quick. But there are going to be days like this, or everybody has days like this. But we missed you at dinner, and here's some food if you're hungry. Like, it was this whole like completely refreshing message to parents to allow your children to just deal with their emotions and accept the emotions instead of forcing them to come back out. And this notion that if you're upset, that's just offending to somebody else. I can't stand that. Like, no, you're going through an emotion because you're a human being. Like, the fact that you're offended by it says more about you than it does about the person who's upset. So yeah. Okay.
Well, also that reminds me all of these things kind of go hand in hand. When you set boundaries for yourself, set boundaries for your children as well when they're with you. Obviously, you can't really when they're with your ex, but like, I decided that I wasn't going to let people try to tell my kids what to do in certain situations. Like, I have a friend who's very well-meaning, and this is something kind of small, but it's actually kind of big in a way. She asked one of my children if she could have a hug, and my kid didn't want to hug her. And I was just like, she just doesn't want to hug you, and because when I was a kid, I was forced to always hug people, or forced to, like, just do it. But I realized my child didn't want to and didn't feel like it. So why should I force them to? Because if somebody tried to force me to hug them and I didn't want to, I wouldn't do it. So, setting boundaries for yourself and your children as well. Because I think the goal should be, we want to be emotionally healthy people, and we want to raise emotionally healthy people. Because then this cycle won't continue on that we've been taught.
Oh my gosh.
That's so important.
Oh, we are so doing a show like specifically about that. I'm so glad you said that. Because awesome. I didn't mean, I mean, this is supposed to be about, kickstarting your healing during divorce, but, we've kind of gotten on the subject of, how society has gotten to this point. And, just talking with you about this has just got my wheels turning. So we're definitely going to do a show about, specifically about that, and probably other stuff too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So moving on, we like to end our shows with an activity, either a fun activity or a healing activity, or something completely unrelated to divorce. So today, I thought that it would be good to end with an activity that will help kickstart your healing for the next year. And so whenever you have free time, set aside a good amount of free time. Don't do this while standing in line somewhere. Like, give it a lot of thought. Maybe brew yourself a cup of coffee, or go to the cafe, and just take some time out for yourself and schedule 3 things that you can do in January to help reconnect with yourself. So some examples are having a spa day. This is one of my favorite things to do because I love doing DIY things. I love saving money when other people are spending ungodly amounts of money on things. And one of the things people spend ungodly amounts of money on are spa treatments and spa items. And I used to buy fruity lotions and stuff like that. But I haven't, and I used to. I use things like coconut oil. I make my own lip gloss. I make my own lip scrub. And a lot of these things can be found in your house. A lot of spa treatments include things like salt, sugar, olive oil, coconut oil, honey. What else? Did I say coconut? I think I said coconut oil. Epsom salts. And so if you just search for, DIY spa or something like that, I'm sure that you will find tons of recipes to make. And like I said, you're probably going to have most of the ingredients in your kitchen already. So another thing, if you like to read, schedule, 3 days, like all 3 days can be the same thing, or you can pick one activity per, you can have 3 different activities during the month of January. So pick a time, like a good amount of time, a good chunk of time. Like, I get so frustrated when I sit down and read a book and I'm getting really, really into it, and then I look up and I only have like 15 more minutes to read. Like, I want like 4 hours to just sit down and drink coffee and read. So like, schedule a reading date for yourself. Another good thing to do to help you reconnect with yourself is writing. So whether, you can go online and search for writing prompts, and I'm sure you'll find a ton of them. I think I even have an app on my phone that you press a button and a random writing prompt pops up, and then you just write about that. You can do something called free writing. I'm not pronouncing things right today. Where you just start writing. You just write whatever comes to your mind. You don't think about it. You don't judge it. You don't try to contain it. You don't, you just write whatever comes to mind. That's a really good way to, get in touch with what you're feeling and figure out what's going on in your mind. And it's actually a form of meditation too. So let's see. And speaking of meditation, actual meditating is good. And exercising. Yoga is really good, or just going for a walk. Don't go out and spend money on, expensive equipment or outfits or whatever. Just go out and walk. I mean, it's the easiest thing. And then another thing that you could do, and you've probably already gotten a bunch of ideas, but something that I was really surprised by was the fact that, well, in my case, kind of stumbling on my faith. I have thought about myself as an atheist for a really long time. And I read the book Eat, Pray, Love, which I highly recommend, especially for, us women who are going through divorce and separation. Eat, Pray, Love is an excellent book to read. And while reading that book, she pointed out a bunch of things that I believe myself. And reading that book made me realize how scared I was of religion. And that, that's a whole other story. But I found a very, personal belief system that I always had, but for some reason I was scared of, and I don't know why. And that's, like I said, for a whole other conversation. But just reconnecting and deepening your faith is, a really good way to connect with yourself, whatever that faith is. So, those are just some ideas. So just pick 3 days that you're going to have a really good chunk of time. I'm talking, more than 3 or 4 hours. So a really good chunk of time to do an activity that helps you reconnect with who you are, whether that's a lost hobby. I've got a bunch of yarn up in my room that's just sitting there, and I really want to do something with it, but I just can't find the time. Or whether that's writing or cooking, eating yummy food, just schedule out time to reconnect with yourself. And so that is your homework for January, to kickstart your healing process during divorce. So, Jenna, do you have any other thing to say before we get going?
When you were talking about writing, I was reminded of the show we had with our guest who was talking about writing love letters to yourself.
Yeah.
So that would also be a really good thing to do on one of those days.
Yeah.
Or even just like I've seen this idea about writing letters to a significant other for like an anniversary gift. And I saw this picture of all these envelopes, and it said, open when, you need to know that I still love you, or open when we're in a fight, or open when you're angry, or whatever. And I think it would be really cool to do that for yourself. Like write letters to yourself, even if it was just something simple, like you can do this, or, just something positive, or, it could be more elaborate. It could be on pretty stationery, or it could just be on Post-it notes, or, just something like that.
So it could,
I had another idea too, but I can't remember right now. But the love letters, yeah.
Yeah. So like your idea, it could be like, one of them could be like, open when you don't have faith in yourself, or open when you don't, open when you don't think you're prettier. I don't know, however you want to write that. Or, make it specific about, I've got ideas going. Technically I took 4 days off. I took 5 days. I took Wednesday, I took Christmas Eve off, I took Christmas Day off, and then I took the whole week off. I didn't work at all. And last night I was kind of gearing up to start my work week again, to like actually get down and do some of my to-dos. And my brain was like, vacation's over. Where's the idea? Like I was just flooded with so many ideas, and it has not stopped. Like I was up until 1:30 this morning, and today I've just, it's been crazy. So yeah, so we should definitely do something with that idea, like write an ebook, or do like a webinar or something about it. Like that's a really, really good idea.
Awesome.
Did you think of the other thing you wanted to say?
I feel like it also had to do with writing. Oh yeah, writing, like how you had said to make your list of rights for when you're when you're going through separation and divorce. I would say you could write something like that and put it somewhere where you can see it every day, or in your room, or make it pretty, or if it's pretty positive, then you could have it in a place that a lot of people could see. I'm a very visual person, and I need to see stuff or I kind of forget about it. So I guess that's where I'm coming from, is, just, visually seeing, like positive things that will help you, and making a point to do that for yourself. Because if you don't have somebody else to do it for you, don't wait around for that. Just do it for yourself. And that, and it's very uplifting and healing to do that. So I would just say that. And also, I was going to say another really good writing prompt would be to just sit down and write all the things that you're grateful for, rather than focusing on like maybe negative things, or, if you're a little bit further in the healing process, like Sarah and I are, and you're watching this, I would say, just make a list, like a huge list of all the things you're grateful for. And I'm sure it will just keep going, and you'd be surprised. Like once you get started, you're going to realize, wow, there's a lot that I have to be grateful for or thankful for. And then I would say keep that somewhere close, by your bed or whatever, if you're ever feeling like, things are going wrong, or you don't, just things are a mess, to just like get that out and look at it and, remember all of those things, or all the things you like about yourself, like I think this could go along with our Valentine's Day show that we've already started talking about, but I've heard other people say, write a list of things that you like about, your spouse or your significant other, so that you always have it and you can remember, like if you're ever in a fight or whatever. But I'd say do that for yourself. Write all the things you like about yourself, and just keep that close also. So
and whenever you feel depressed, or when you're going through a situation, especially if you've gotten cheated on. I know I went through this. You get to a point sometimes where you feel, oh, nobody is ever going to love me again. I can't trust anybody. Why did he cheat on me? Did he cheat on me because I'm not good enough? Stuff like that. When you're not, just in general, when you're not feeling good enough, or when you start criticizing yourself, or when you start being really harsh with yourself, you can look at your list of things that you love about yourself. That's a really good idea. Okay, we really need to get going now. But thank you so much for catching, if you're joining us live, and thank you also for catching the replay. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can check out the other videos that are in the series. There will be a link at the bottom, and I've also been adding these to a playlist. There's only 4, so it won't take you that long to watch them. But you can catch the playlist and watch all 4 of them. And if you like what you've heard, please subscribe to Sane and Satisfied on Heartly Broken, or Sane and Satisfied on Blab, sorry. And then I am on Periscope as well. I think Periscope is Heartly Broken too, because I've changed my names a couple times. But Jenna's on there as Jenna Callahan 85. Is that what you are on Periscope? Okay. And we're also on Facebook. You can check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Heartly Broken. And that's heart, as in Heartly Broken. And let's see. And our website is www.heartlybroken.com, and also heartlybrokenradio.com. And you can find more resources there to help you through separation and divorce, like my coloring book that I just finished creating. It's available on our website right now, and hopefully it will be published through Amazon in January, so look for that as well. And we try to create more resources every month. Like I said, we're working on a book, so if you have any ideas, if you have any anything that you're trying to work through and you'd like more information about it, let us know, and we'll work with you, or we'll create a resource, or do a video on it or something. So I guess that's it, and thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you again next week. And I hope your holidays have been good, and I hope your New Year is going to go off. I can't talk. I hope your new year is started off on the right foot. So
definitely. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, have a good day. All right, bye.
Bye.